Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's talk on education in South London. I would like to introduce you to the panel. So on my left is Susannah Cannell. She's a Good Schools Guide writer and consultant. Then we have Ted Lougher from King's College Junior School. Then we have Cathy Ellott, who is head of Streatham and Clapham High, and Chris Wolsey, head of Ibstock Place. The way we're going to start is that we're going to have a general discussion about education in South London specifically, and then we're going to open up to questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, make a note of them now, and there'll be an opportunity in about 25 minutes' time for you to ask the panel and find out what they've got to say. So the first topic that we're going to have, and it's maybe a more general discussion to start with, is what do you think the differences are about educating children in London? And perhaps, Cathy, would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, I'd love to. So good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be here. And I will just give the caveat that I've been in post for 8 weeks and I'm new to London. But I was very deliberate in wanting to come and be the head at a school in London because there's a very special energy to that. But I also think there's an effort that we go to identify ourselves as who we are and differentiate ourselves from the school that is only up the road. And I would really urge you to look in the fullest way at what every school offers, because you will look at the academic outcomes and grade the schools accordingly. But my goodness, you wouldn't want anyone to judge your child, surely, only by their academic outcomes. And so it's looking to see in that kind of busy, more constrained sort of physical space of London schools compared to the leafy greenery that we might see in the suburbs and further beyond. What in those busy, quite large, exciting spaces, how are they addressing the full child in every way? So what is the co-curricular option? What are the ways in which they're connecting with the local community and internationally? And what's the pastoral care like that's supporting and intrinsic to the academic provision? So it is they're busy spaces, but how do they define themselves within that kind of urban context is an important thing for parents to look out for, I think.
Thank you very much. Ted, would you like to add your thoughts on that matter?
Yes, absolutely. Very nice to see you all. Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. I'm Ted Lougher from King's College Junior School in Wimbledon. Firstly, I think we're incredibly privileged to work in this tremendous city. We're in the best city in the world, and we have on our doorstep so many magnificent resources by way of museums and other brilliant things that we can take the children to and engage with. I'd also agree with Cathy that the choice in London is absolutely enormous. We know that the Good Schools Guide reviews 364 schools in London. I think I know that within a 10-mile radius of my school, there are 249 different options. So I think Cathy's right. We do have to work very, very hard to distinguish ourselves. I think on the negative side, one thing that you wouldn't always associate with London schools is space. And we do struggle a little for greenery and open spaces, typically in the city compared to out in the countryside. But that's where we're rather lucky in Wimbledon with a setting just up on Wimbledon Common. We have a huge site that accommodates 1,500 pupils without any struggle whatsoever. And in addition to that, we have a big sports complex in New Malden and a boathouse in Putney that allow us to provide over 150 different co-curricular clubs. So we feel that we're in a privileged position to offer the best of both when it comes to London and rural schools.
Chris, would you like to add your thoughts on educating children in London?
Yeah, thanks so much, and really good to be here. Thanks for coming, everybody. I think I'd echo everything that's just been said. It is true that the London The London marketplace is exceedingly broad, and it is true that because the market is relatively buoyant in this city, schools perhaps don't have to play to all parts of that marketplace. They can specialise, and that, I think, as parents, puts you in an enormously fortunate position. You're able to choose a school then that is perhaps bespoke to your particular child. There are academic schools. There are schools very much that promote their co-curricular program. There are schools that will very much focus on the learning support they can provide for their young people. Having said that, there are brilliant schools across the whole of this country. I don't want to become terribly kind of London-centric. Good schools are good schools wherever you are. I guess I'd say two other things, though. I think because the London marketplace is so competitive, it means that schools in London tend, I think, in the main, to be more attentive to stakeholder opinion than perhaps they are in other parts of the country. It really matters that they connect well to their parents. And I guess that's double-edged. On the one hand, that means they're really agile. They're really quick to respond to emergent trends within education, and that's a good thing. Sometimes, and I think as heads, we have to really protect ourselves from this. Sometimes that parent voice can be super, super vigorous, and sometimes that can deflect the school from perhaps the kind of deeper considerations that guard its long-term trajectory. And that really matters, that we're not kind of deflected from that core vision of education. And I think that's something that probably all London heads recognise. But as I say, it comes with lots of advantages too, being really kind of agile and fleet of foot, and that I think is distinctive in London too.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to turn to Susannah, who's one of our education consultants and writers who visits schools on behalf of the Good Schools Guide and works with parents. Susannah lives in South London, and it would be nice to get an overview from her about what the parents that she meets every day are looking for.
Yikes. Hello, everybody. Yes, obviously I come in this from a different angle. I think schools in South West London are great. I've visited many, many schools, and I've known children at lots of schools, and there is a good school, there is the right school for every child. You may think that's the only school. It's not. I think educating children in London, it is more frenetic. There is more competition. I do think people get more sucked into the whole world of the 11 plus, 7 plus, 13 plus, whatever it is, the anxiety. I think there's more anxiety about getting into the best school, the one with the best results and everything else. So I think in London, it's important to take a step back, as it is everywhere. Look at your child, work out who they are, what they're like, rather than always focusing on the school that the rest of your cohort, their parents say is the one that everyone should go for. So just relax and enjoy the journey.
That's very good advice. I know it's very hard to be relaxed about your own child's education, but it is a good idea to step back and look at the wider picture and try not to be too influenced by what your neighbours, your friends, the dinner party circuit, whatever it is talking about. Because often schools' reputations might be very different from the reputations that everybody thinks they have. So it's up to you to do your own research and visit the schools and see whether they're a good fit for your child. Another question we have here that we're asked is, are all London independent schools selective? Would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly not. No, there's a huge amount of choice, as we've said, across London, many selective and many non-selective settings. Obviously, I can only speak with any real authority about King's. We are selective. We're in a fortunate position to have more applicants than we do places, and that's in part because of excellent academic outcomes in terms of public exams. But it's worth stressing that that is certainly only a byproduct of a much richer educational provision. I know we have something of a reputation of being an academic hothouse, but as I tour guests around King's, I'm frequently told how different their impression is when they start step through the doors and realise, as I say, that the academic outcomes are really a byproduct of what is a fantastically rich, vibrant and fun educational experience. So if you are considering King's, I'd warmly encourage you to come along to our open day. Our next one's coming up on the 14th of September. But we also offer lots of small tours. My senior school colleague, Dr. Cotton, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, she and I both offer small group tours, and would love to take you around. I think, as we've alluded to, with the huge amount of choice to be made, it can be very, very difficult. And I think the best thing any parent can do is to really try and get under the skin of a school and get in and feel that fabric and see whether it might be a good fit for your child's aspirations and your values.
Cathy, would you like to say a little bit more about selection?
Yes, of course. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we automatically think when we're talking about selection, we're talking about academic selection. And so most independent schools are having a selection process, and that's all about the family coming to the school and seeing if it's the right school for their child, and us as a school looking to see whether your child is going to flourish with us. Is it the right ecosystem in which your child can be happy and can learn in a really effective way? And so at Streatham and Clapham, we have a prep school, a junior school. We start at 3, and then a senior school just 10 minutes up the road, which I'm overall head of. So we go from 3 to 18. And so the nature of what that selection looks like is obviously different if you're coming at 3 from if you're joining at 11 plus or indeed at 16 plus. And so it's, do look on our website if you want to find out more about what that selection process is like. But we are unique, I would say, in South London in how we do our selection at 11 plus, because we do, of course, do an academic test. We do the ISEB like many of the other schools. But in addition to that, we have a creative writing and group activity day, which we've just done last week. And the girls come and they are given a scenario that they have to work on in a group. And it was actually a heist. It was super fun. And we see them naturally performing in their own genuine way, doing group work, collaborating and testing out ideas. We're observing that, and we have others looking at that too, so that we really, again, I think, see the whole child. We're not going to interview them in a highly stressful and I think kind of carefully crafted way. Instead, we want to see them as they really are. So that whole business of how the selection works, I think also tells you a lot about the schools.
Thank you very much. And Chris, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, the question was, are all London schools selective? And if we're talking about academic selection, then absolutely Ted's right, they're not. If I promote for a moment, I should promote the Independent Schools Association website. There's a really good find a school function on that website, and you can filter by various criteria. One of those criteria is selectivity. So I will make that point. I think Cathy just made a really important point about how selection is different at different points of entry, and I think that is a really good point. And that which happens in preschool is a little bit different, say, to that which happens at 16 plus. But I think you've got a sense from the entirety of the panel that a school that selects exclusively on academic attainment, a school that's very kind of reductive in its processes, is probably a dying breed. As a sector, I think we've got better at finding other ways of determining whether a child can thrive in our environment. At Ibstock, for instance, all of our pupils at 11 plus, they participate in a learning workshop, and so we can put them into a lesson. We can put an Ibstock teacher in front of them, and they'll get about half an hour or so in that context. Hopefully, they'll derive something of value. We're trying to keep it pretty buoyant, pretty fun, but we can draw a lot from that to supplement the data that's coming out from the more formal testing that we do, and I think that you'll find that that's becoming increasingly the case in institutions like the ones that we represent.
Thank you very much. As a adjacent point to that, I think parents that we meet, Susannah and I meet in the course of our work, are very worried when they hear that schools are selective, however you want to define that, at 4, which is a terribly young age to determine anything about a child. So I'm interested to hear that it's a more holistic process than just finding out whether or not your child has read War and Peace. But I think, how would you reassure parents about this. Do you want, again, would you like to start with that, just to give a sense of what it's like when you say, you can't say you're not selective, because it's not just whoever, puts the name down first gets a place. There is a selection process, but how does it work when a child is so young?
So if you're coming for a nursery entry place or a 4+ space, then it would be coming in for a stretch of time in the morning, and we'll watch the little girl play with some new friends in the school context. But then she would have a 15 or 20-minute conversation with our head of early years, and that would be without mum or dad there, an opportunity for that little girl to talk about what she likes and what she's interested in, and really for us to get to know her. I will say I failed to get into Bromley High when I was 4, so there's hope for all of us. But I do think it's really important that the little girl feels relaxed and can come and play and come and be herself, and we see how that goes. And then, of course, at a 7+ entry, as you would expect, there's a more formal process with testing as part of that. But they come and do an activity and have some fun, and then do a reasoning paper, a maths paper, an English paper, but things that are really carefully structured for them and supported for them. And, we can give guidance about the sort of things you might do to practice for that at home in a really kind of low-stakes way.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add on that topic?
Well, let's talk a little bit about selection a bit later on in the secondary journey. So let's talk about 16+ selection, for instance. Very much on my mind, since we did quite a lot of that at Ibstock start of this week. So we have everybody come in and do a CAT test, a cognitive attainment test. We use Atom at Ibstock Place, pretty well known in the sector. In addition to that, though, our candidates have interviews with the heads of department of the subjects that they want to study at A-level, and in addition to that, they participate in a group task. So we were talking this week, for example, about the COVID inquiry. We were talking about Dominic Cummings and such like, and that very much is part of our selection process. We can look at the dynamics. We can look at the extent to which the young people who've applied to be in our sixth form are connected to what's happening in the wider world. We think that's so important. But again, it's an example, isn't it, of the way in which, as a sector, we've sought to move beyond very kind of arithmetic and reductive methods.
Thank you very much. And adjacent to that again, and I think this is one of the things that parents ask us a lot about. I know that schools will say that they do not want candidates to be tutored, but I'm afraid the reality is that most parents are going to want to do that in order to believe, to believe that their child will have a better chance, perhaps, if they are more familiar with the kind of questions that they are asked at various stages. So I'd just perhaps like to ask Susannah what parents come to us asking about tuition, and whether or not indeed tuition is a positive thing all round, rather than just cramming a child perhaps to just scrape through an examination at 11+ that they wouldn't under normal circumstances have done. Whether or not it can be a positive thing to help children with their confidence, for instance. Susannah.
Thank you. Okay, I get approached by a lot of people. Most recently, a child who's going to have his 3rd birthday shortly after Christmas. And could I help prepare this child for the assessment? Because he was going to have to know his phonics and how to write his name. Peregrine is quite a hard name. I think children called Ava or Bob have an advantage. Make sure your child has a short name. But of course, that's absolute rubbish. The child does not have to sit down, blend sounds and write his or her name when they are 3. Tutoring can really help, particularly if you're coming from perhaps a school where they don't prepare for 7+, 11+, having experience of what to expect, seeing what non-verbal reasoning is. I mean, who knows what comes next in that sequence if you've never seen it before? I think it's very easy for parents to get sucked in to the hysteria on the school gate, where they think that they have to have maths tutoring. They now need to prepare as well with a specialist in group problem-solving activities. Of course, over Easter or the autumn half term, you can see someone who will prepare interview skills and presentation skills just in case. And you can buy into some great courses that last a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks in their holidays, because obviously they don't need a break between school term ending and another one beginning. And there are companies who are making a very tidy profit of relentless tutoring for children, some very young. I have to say, if your child needs that to get into the school that you think you want them to go to, please think again. In the long term, it's not going to do them any good. That would be my, sorry, bit long.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm very mindful of time, and I can see that we've got quite a large audience, so I'm going to ask, perhaps if we could start with you. Would you say that a prep school, whether or not it is a linked prep school, as in your case, whether a prep school is necessary or the best way to prepare for a selective senior school?
I think it's a very, very difficult question to answer because of the diversity between schools. At King's into year 7 last year, we took just over 60 pupils, and they came from 50 different schools. And those schools came from the independent sector and from the maintained sector. So there's no one size fits all. There's no one route that works better than others. In the junior school at King's, we're fortunate that we are a through school. So when pupils join us at 7+, 8+, or 9+, they are guaranteed transition through into the senior school. And for us, that's a blessing because, of course, without the pressure of an assessment to sit at the end of year 6, we can focus much more energy on the breadth of our curriculum. But as I say, pupils from all different backgrounds are thriving at King's. We had a feeder school lunch a couple of weeks ago where lots of heads from other schools in the area came, and it was lovely to see them interacting with such a range of pupils who've come from their different schools. We really don't have a one size fits all model. You know, all of our pupils are unashamedly academically ambitious and curious and eager to involve themselves. But we're very keen that each should tread his own path and find his own way. So there's certainly no sort of mould that we're looking for.
But it's true to say, and increasingly so in these financially uncertain times, that some parents don't have the disposable income to spend on a prep and a senior school. And I suppose if you're thinking about where you're going to put your money, you might want to put it at the point where there are public examinations and, you know, the university and the stakes are high. So it's whether or not, if your child, for instance, goes to their local school and they have a little bit of tuition, is that enough to get them into a high-performing senior school, or is the prep school adding something significant if you can't necessarily do one model of education all the way through? Would you like to start with that one?
Yeah. Look, at Ibstock we have an abundance of highly credible candidates from maintained primary schools at 11+, and so I would absolutely echo the notion that you can be entirely assured that the state primary schools can prepare their young people brilliantly for entry to a independent senior school. Nevertheless, and we are speaking here in impossibly broad terms, it is true that prep schools perhaps know that marketplace a little bit better. Inevitably, prep schools are able to spend more time preparing their young people for 11+ and the kind of selection processes that people are likely to encounter when they enter an independent senior school. And of course, the other part of this is prep schools in the main are able to provide for a really kind of broad co-curricular program in a way that's sometimes a little bit harder in the maintained sector. And if we're talking about all of the things that make a young person attractive to an independent senior school, then as we've already talked about, we're not just talking about raw academic attainment. We're talking about all of those softer skills. We're talking about group work. We're talking about communication skills. And of course, it's in a co-curricular program that those things can be particularly well developed. Now, of course, there are all sorts of ways in which those skills can be developed by people who don't go to independent prep schools. Of course there are. But because it's part of the prep school successful experience, then I might suggest that the families perhaps have to work a little bit less hard to provide for those kind of skills.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add something to that topic?
Yes, of course. So at Streatham and Clapham, 90% of our prep school girls come through to the senior school. So we are a through school. But I'm really delighted that in our current cohort of people applying for this September, or next September for 11 plus, we've got girls applying from 73 different schools. So there's a real sense of diversity and variety of schools. They're state-maintained schools and independent schools as well. And we see the girls from all sorts of different backgrounds flourish. That said, I would, speaking as a parent, when I moved my child from one of my children from state to prep, the reason for that was partly about thinking about the long term, but my goodness, it was about the gift of education they were having in their junior setting. And when I was talking to some of the Year 4 girls at Streatham yesterday, I asked them why they thought their parents had sent them to Streatham and come to the prep school. And they were talking, well, the first girl said she picked off her glasses and she said, oh, it's because no one teases me here about my glasses. Everyone's so kind. Another girl said it's the facilities. Another girl said it's the small class sizes. Another girl said she loves the fact that they don't have to segue off the different bits of the playground for kind of annoying football from the boys. And so they all, and then we were sitting there eating a delicious lunch, and the girl said, and obviously the food. And so they had so many reasons why they understood why their parents had invested in this education for them right now. And so, of course, you need to be pragmatic. And in these times, we absolutely recognise that how difficult it can be financially. But my goodness, if you possibly can, give that gift of education and all that we can offer in the prep setting for the here and now, for how your children can flourish, as well as for that really important investment in what they can then go on to in their senior schools.
Thank you very much. Susannah, do you have anything to add on that topic? And then we'll go on to questions from the audience.
Okay, so I think everyone's agreed that you all want to do what's best for your child, but without making sacrifices that are so overwhelming that they threaten to sort of overwhelm you. Is prep school the best way? Possibly. If it's not an easy option for you, there are other things which we all know. Any educationist will tell you there are things that prepare your children, that secure higher levels of achievement later on. Read books to your children, with your children. Talk with your children and to your children, not at your children. Go out on Wimbledon Common, go into Richmond Park, climb trees, jump in puddles, name the trees, name the birds, play games, meet other children. There are so many things that will make your child into an interesting person that schools will want to know when they get to 10 or 11 plus. And that's in your hand. And you can do much more in the hours you have with your children than anybody can, and particularly more than a tutor can in an hour a week. So yes, prep schools are great, and some of them are truly remarkable. Some are less so, but it's not vital. It's not necessary. Enjoy your children and read lots.
Thank you very much. So if you have a question for anybody on the panel, if you put your hand up, then my colleague will pass the microphone over.
Thank you. Hello. So I just wanted to understand the mindset of, or indeed the consideration when looking at either co-ed or single-sex schools, particularly secondary school, and for boys in that regard. Okay.
Shall we start with you?
Yeah, certainly. Well, so at King's, we are a boys' school up until the sixth form, where we welcome girls. And what I can say is that we know boys really, really well. Over almost 200 years, we've been working with boys, and so we understand what makes them tick. And we feel that we've, tuned our classroom practices and indeed our co-curricular offering to get the very best out of all the myriad different characters that exist. We are conscious, however, that they will miss out slightly, or not even slightly, a great deal if they don't have sisters, if they don't have cousins who are girls, close friends who are girls. And so we mitigate for that by having a fantastic collaboration program with other girls' schools in the area. We collaborate with the study, we collaborate with Wimbledon High Junior School, that's in our junior school. And then as the boys move up through the senior school, we have a charter with Wimbledon High, which sees them collaborate on a number of projects before, as I say, the girls join them in the sixth form. So again, I'd like to think that at King's we can offer the best of both, but certainly we're very proud of our specialism in knowing all about what makes boys tick and what helps them to achieve in a fun environment.
And Cathy?
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of all girls. I've worked in all girls, all boys and co-ed, and you need to find the right space for your particular child. But I do think all girls is amazing for the young women of the future. In an all-girls school, all subjects are girls' subjects. You know, looking at the girls who got all A stars in their A levels at my school, when it's maths and biology and chemistry and their EPQ and they're going off to read STEM subjects, that's really exciting. When we announce and celebrate girls' sport and indeed fund sport, it's all for the girls at our school. We design the curriculum in the interests of girls, so the books we study, the plays we put on, the composers we celebrate. We really think about the impressive women that are behind all of that. When we're thinking about our assemblies, it's about the things that really matter and are relatable and kind of relevant to girls. And I would say our teaching styles are really adapted to girls as well. So that's sort of collaborative, experimental, and we give them opportunities to lead, to take risks, to get things wrong, and also really vitally how to give feedback. I would say for teenagers, that's a key difference often between boys and girls, that girls are, you need to think really carefully about how you give constructive feedback. So it is about our young women to become really fearless learners, that they're happy to debate and compete with boys. Oh my goodness, they are, when they go off to the Model United Nations, where they go into debating competitions. In fact, one of the Year 6 girls was, and they do that at all years, but a Year 6 girl said to me yesterday, she was at a debating competition with 53 schools, boys' schools, girls' schools, co-ed. And she said, God, one of the boys, he said, I refute that. And I said, God, that sounds a bit pompous. And she said, yes, I was a bit intimidated. I said, oh, you didn't need to be intimidated. I hope you said it back. And she said, oh, yes. And then went on to talk about how they'd won it. And that was about whether Paddington should go back to Peru. But it was just a lovely energy that you get there. But the final thing I'd say about all girls schools is friendship. The most amazing friendships that the girls have together. And I see that in all the alumni that come back and tell me all about it. So the fun.
Thank you very much. And final word to Ken.
Well, I'm atypical insofar that I'm head of a very proudly co-educational school. So my school's been co-educational from its inception, actually. That was unusual, 1894, but we were co-educational from the very, very beginning. It's absolutely in our DNA. And look, for me, this is a relatively straightforward issue, although I know my colleagues will disagree. You know, the world, life is co-educational. And so it seems entirely appropriate that the schooling should be as well. I think as a corollary to that, I'd say that doesn't mean that as a co-educational environment, we're not unthinking about the importance of gender. Look, we recognise that girls and boys are sometimes different. Sometimes is a word that needs to be triply underlined, but we do recognise that girls and boys sometimes learn in a different way, and of course that's an active point of discussion amongst my staff. Likewise, gender is a much contended issue at the moment, isn't it? We think a great deal about the shape of our curriculum and the way in which we can ensure that young people of both genders can access all parts of our curriculum. We're doing lots of interesting things in sport, for example, and exploring the opportunity to mix some of our sports. So look, this is a kind of really live issue at Ibstock, but I'll come back to the point I just started with. You know, we're preparing our young people for life beyond the school gate, and I think co-education has very obvious merits if one's looking at that.
And thank you all, and thank you for such an interesting question. Who would like to take the microphone next?
Thank you. Hello, thank you very much for the talk so far. There is no doubt about the amazing experience children will have and the education going to these private schools. However, a question comes to mind. It seems more and more universities as well as secondary schools are setting ratios and quotas for children coming from private education. So is going to private education putting our kids at disadvantage, given the cost? I think while we enjoy the experience, knowing that kids from a specific school will have less advantage, or if you go to a very bright school, only 5 of those will be allowed, let's say, to Oxford. You have to go to possibly the local state school to get through. Is there truth to that? And what are the private schools doing about this, please?
Ted, would you like to take that question first?
Certainly, yes. Thank you. Well, firstly, it's incredibly difficult because, of course, we'll never know exactly what quotas are in place and indeed whether there's any truth to it. But certainly, I think there's pressure for all schools and particularly sixth forms to mark themselves out and come back to the point about distinguishing ourselves from other schools to convince you that we're a great option for you and good value for the money that you're investing in your child's education. And at King's, certainly, we've a fantastic record of getting our pupils into their top choice universities. We were at 84% of our A-levels and we're at A-star A last year. But significantly, we also offer the IB. So our pupils can choose between A-level and IB in the sixth form. But I'm keen to stress that one of our big mantras at the moment is life at 25. So we're not just looking to ensure that the pupils have a brilliant time, age 16, 17, 18. We're not just looking to ensure that they get onto their desired university course. We're looking to prepare them for the life beyond school, enabling them to strike out and not just take opportunities, but generate opportunities and to have the lion-heartedness, if you will, to become the person that they want to be and to make a really positive impact in their communities, both locally, nationally, and hopefully globally. So we hope their time with us will equip them to live fulfilled and enriched lives and indeed to benefit from magnificent relationships.
Chris, would you like to deal specifically with the question of whether or not attending a private school could be a disadvantage when it comes to university application?
Yeah, I mean, I could obviously only speak for Ibstock's experience. I think that anecdotally, there is some evidence that some of the most academically selective institutions in London have seen a significant diminution in the number of their young people who go on to Oxbridge. As I say, it's anecdotal, but it's out there and it's been there for a little while. Speaking though for a school which isn't amongst the academically elite of this city, but sits just underneath that, I think what I'd say that our lived experience is that we haven't seen a significant diminution in terms of the kind of institutions that our young people go on to. If you look, for example, at Oxbridge, actually, we've kind of plateaued. One year, we might get 5 or 6 people in. Another year, we might just get 1 or 2 in. But that hasn't changed over the last decade or so. And if you look at the other top Russell Group institutions, Durham, Bristol, St Andrews, Edinburgh, actually, we haven't seen a great deal of change. Now, admittedly, it's difficult to judge where we might go going forward. A lot of talk at the moment about potential change of government and what that might bring. But I guess I make 2 other points. Firstly, and we're already seeing this certainly at Ibstock, I'm sure it's happening in other schools as well, there's growing interest, of course, in higher education outside of the United Kingdom. Certainly here at Ibstock, growing interest in the US, growing interest in institutions in continental Europe, Australasia, and of course it is an independent school. We're really well placed to support that. We've got the resource, we've got the staff expertise that can help prepare people for university outside of the UK, and that's really important. And then of course there's that point that really Ted just made, that point about all of those other things that we want education to do, all of those soft skills in particular that we know will be utterly critical to our young people once they've gone through education and they're looking for a job. They're going to need to show that they've got those future skills. And I think that independent schools are particularly well placed to provide for those things. And I think that's a really critical issue for you as parents as you think about the best steps for your children.
Thank you very much. Cathy, do you have anything to add briefly to that, just so that we have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, I would say Oxbridge absolutely has set a high bar, but the way in which these universities are discriminating, it's all about the grades that they offer the child. And of course, what our schools can do is be really ambitious in helping girls get the grades that they are being offered by universities. And so a really important part of that is that enabling the girls to select the ambitious universities that they want, giving them the support to make those applications, those ambitious applications, and then that they get those grades. So you will see that universities are setting higher grade aspirations for children from public schools, at times from private schools, but we will help them get those grades and try to kind of counter that. And I would absolutely echo what we're saying about the whole person, that we're preparing for life at university and beyond.
Thank you very much. Is there another question?
Hi, thank you. I'm from an online English language school. As I met several of you probably in the store. We have students in mainland China where parents probably thinking about the future the possibilities coming over. But I do have friends who's been agents before. There's one question always come across is they probably achieve academically perfectly for Chinese students as they study so hard, but there's only a barrier of the culture interchange. So I'm just wondering, is there any evidence there to show which age probably will be relatively an easier age to mix with other culture to accepting it, or is there anything? I'm sure you have international students, so Chinese is just a example. They do have other students come from different culture. How do you support them to encourage them to mix the multicultural, to open mind? I think it's quite a tough job.
Is this not more a question really perhaps for the boarding schools?
Not relatively, because
Okay.
because could it be boarding school, could it be just international students who's
Would one of you like to take this question if you have a proportion of international students in your cohort?
I can certainly tell you that at King's we have a hugely international community, and at every level we welcome candidates and entrants from a wide variety of backgrounds, nationally, linguistically, socioeconomically, and we really relish that diversity in our community. And I would say that we don't have to do a great deal actually to encourage the pupils to mix, and certainly in my section of the school, in the junior school, they mix across so many myriad different activities that we don't have to really do much extra. But what we do put on is we make sure that there are representative groups for different sections of our school community, so that should they feel that they want to be represented more in isolation, then there is a space for that. But it's not something that we struggle with, and we find that all of our joiners settle in very, very well.
Cathy?
Yeah, we're very proud to be a very diverse school. We're the most diverse of the GDST schools, but that really represents our local area. We are a very local school, and so we have 33 different ethnicities, 24 different home languages. It's a really richly diverse space, and I would echo exactly what you say. The young people come and find their place with us and settle very easily and quickly.
And do you have anything to add on that topic?
Yeah, I think what matters is what is the school doing to create this kind of integrated community? At Ibstock, we have a house system, and the houses are absolutely the kind of building block of our community. And what they do is they provide an opportunity then for pupils to step outside of their regular class and meet with other people. The other thing we do is we have vertical tutor groups. So we don't silo our young people into one particular year group. So the year 7s will be in the same year group as the year 8s, and that makes an enormous difference as well. And if you can do that, then you can really kind of create then those bonds that will knit your community together, and that makes sure that you don't have separate constituencies of your pupil body between whom there's very little exchange.
Thank you very much. We're nearly coming to the end of our time. If there's anybody who has one more quick question, raise your hand. Yes.
Thank you. Hopefully very quick. It's again on the co-ed issue. If your child has been in a co-ed environment up until 11 or even 13, then going into a single ed environment, do you think that puts them at any disadvantage or otherwise? Thank you.
Who would like to take that one on? Cathy, do you want to start with that one?
I think it's really about the child. I think you can, and I would agree with you in a way that when we were talking earlier, that that the children will adapt to being in the space that they're in. So if you felt that what's much more important is it the right school for your child? Part of that will be about whether it's co-ed or single sex, but there'll be so much more to it about the atmosphere and the offering and so on. And so if you feel it's the right school for your child, single sex or co-ed, they will settle and that will work. But I would look at it much more broadly than that. Really. And certainly when girls come to us, to be honest, when they come from co-ed to single sex, they're often quite pleased to be in single sex and they're enjoying it being all girls.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure there's much more to add on that to that answer, but I'm sure you're going to have a go.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that I think the values of the school are incredibly important, and also it would be wrong to think that all boys are the same or all girls are the same. We have a huge spread of characters, even within a boys' school up to 16. So I think that's worth remembering, and certainly our values of kindness and inclusivity and things like that certainly help everybody to flourish.
Would you like to
I think you know what I would say. So.
I think that's true. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming to this final talk of the day here. I believe there are a couple of others that my colleague is going to tell you about. But first of all, I'd like to thank this very knowledgeable panel. We've got Susannah. Thank you very much. We've got Ted. We've got Cathy. And we have Chris. Thank you very much all for your very good advice.
And thank you, Janita, as well. Just to let you know that King's College School is now going to speak in the Bursary and Scholarships Pavilion, which is at the back on straight down behind. So if you came down these stairs here to the right, you can go straight to the back. And Caroline from King's College School is going to be speaking there. And Cathy Ellott from Streatham and Clapham High School will be speaking in London Choices, which is in the other corner at the back of the main room at 4:10. So you'll have a chance to hear more about the admissions process from Cathy then. Thank you.